Breaking just moments ago, as first reported by the New York Times, The Hill's John Solomon, and now Fox News have all confirmed that the Attorney General, Barr, just appointed the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut to investigate the origins of the witch hunt into the Trump campaign. This is huge news, a colossal step forward for equal justice and equal application under our laws. It's what we have been telling you is a big part of what is coming. Now, if you're counting, this is now the third investigation into the deep state taking place in Barr's DOJ. And you can add to that Senator Lindsey Graham. That will be 4 investigations. Keep in mind, Huber is also investigating the leaks out in Utah. The Inspector General Horowitz is investigating FISA abuse. And without a doubt, Operation Crossfire Hurricane is, as we've been calling it, Operation Boomerang. Several days ago, during a series of important questions from Senator Lindsey Graham, to remind you, he asked the Attorney General about the Mueller report, about what he viewed as important. We told you last week, Act 2, the curtain's about to go up. Tonight, the curtain's up. Take a look.
Do you share my concerns about the FISA warrant process?
Yes.
Do you share my concerns about the counterintelligence investigation, how it was opened and why it was opened?
Yes.
Do you share my concerns that the lack of professionalism in the Clinton email investigation is something we should all look at?
Yes.
Do you expect to change your mind about the bottom line conclusions of the Mueller report?
No.
Do you think the president's campaign in 2016 was thoroughly looked at in terms of whether or not they colluded with the Russians?
Yes.
And the answer is no, according to Bob Mueller.
That's right.
He couldn't decide about obstruction. You did. Is that correct?
That's right.
You feel good about your decision?
Absolutely.
Now, while the Attorney General Barr searches for truth and justice and is fulfilling what he said he would do, tonight, hysteria is spreading in every corner of the Democratic Party as we now inch closer to the 2020 presidential election. The noise on the left, it is getting louder and louder and louder, but make no mistake, it's only noise, nothing more. It's not based in any facts, any truth, any reality. We now have had, over the course of 2 years, count them, 4 separate investigations that have cleared President Trump, the Trump campaign, of any type of collusion or obstruction. Democrats, it's only noise. They can't let their own lies and conspiracy theories go. But while the left continues to push their hoax, we have been uncovering what is the biggest abuse of power scandal in American history. Only we have evidence. In the end, facts speak louder than hysteria. And tonight, the facts are casting a damning shadow on the disgraced, fired former FBI Director James Comey, who is now being called out publicly by his former colleague of all people, Rod Rosenstein, in a major way tonight. Look at this.
So I do not blame the former director for being angry. I would be too if I were in his shoes. But now the former director seems to be acting as a partisan pundit, selling books and earning speaking fees while speculating about the strength of my character and the fate of my immortal soul. I kid you not. That is disappointing.
Rosenstein unloading, saying he broke, meaning Comey, lines that never should have been crossed. And Rod Rosenstein is absolutely right to slam the former, disgraced FBI director. Comey abused his power. The evidence against him is mounting. And here is what we now know. October 21st, 2016, then FBI Director James Comey, he signed off on the first of what became 4 FISA warrant applications, requests against Trump campaign associate Carter Page, denying him his constitutional rights, and more importantly, offering a backdoor into all things the Trump campaign. Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dossier, according to the Nunes memo and the Grassley-Graham memos. The bulk of information was the predicate for those FISA applications. They were unverified. They were paid for by Hillary. They were put together by somebody that hates Donald Trump and somebody who, in an interrogatory in Great Britain, actually said he has no idea if any of it's true. 50-50. It's just raw intelligence. That was the basis for a warrant, not 1, but 4. And Comey signed the first one. It says on top of the warrant, verified. The FISA court was not informed that Clinton paid for this, even what the New York Times is suggesting, Russian disinformation. Instead, James Comey swore that the information that he provided to the FISA court in that application was true and it was correct. The application itself marked verified at the very top, but the dossier was never verified, frankly unverifiable, because Steele himself doesn't stand by it. Now, during an interrogatory we told you about in Great Britain, that's when we learned that truth. And he goes, I don't know if any of it's true, but he was under the threat of perjury at that moment, so we would expect that he didn't want to tell the truth on that. Christopher Steele hated then candidate Trump. He was willing to do anything to take him down. DOJ official Bruce Orr was one of many that we now know that warned the FBI, warned the Department of Justice about Steele's hyper-partisan conduct and Steele's ties to the Clinton campaign well before the October FISA request. The Orr warning came in August of 2016 before the October 2016 FISA application. Last week we learned also a high-ranking State Department official, her name Kathleen Kavlek. Well, she also issued a direct warning about Steele 10 days before the FISA request. She passed on the red flags about Steele's election rigging efforts, the validity of his work, and she sent it to the FBI and the Department of Justice. They still went forward and used that information anyway. Now Senator Lindsey Graham, he is working to declassify a government document that he is saying tonight will prove the FBI absolutely positively knew that Steele's work was full of lies and garbage, and Hillary paid for it. By the way, a lie by omission in the case of the FISA court abuse. They literally conspired to commit fraud on a court. They hated Donald Trump that much. Now, we know Senator Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson, they issued separate document requests from the State Department and the FBI in order to determine what Comey knew about Steele when he signed off on the warrant to spy on an American and an opposition party candidate. It's not looking good for Mr. Super Patriot Jim Comey. And FISA abuse is just one part of what is lawless behavior and abuse of power. Congressman Ratcliffe, he is now calling for an investigation into James Comey tonight. Take a look.
Jim's proud of himself, but the Inspector General found him insubordinate, and many of us believe that he either is or should be under investigation for violating the Espionage Act, for recording his conversations with President Trump in the Oval Office and then intentionally leaking classified information to start this investigation. So, you know, Maria, as you know, as a former federal prosecutor, I've worked with hundreds of FBI agents, and over the last 2 years, they haven't used the word proud once to describe Jim Comey. They use words like embarrassed and ashamed.
Let's not forget, we're not talking about with a single premier law enforcement agency in the world, single best intelligence agencies in the world. Not the 99.9%, but the upper echelon. They're the ones that abuse their power. The Jim Comeys of the world, self-righteous, super patriot. He can do no wrong. Well, he's in serious trouble tonight. We've warned him many times. He has the right to remain silent. He's not listening to me. Doesn't matter how many dramatic op-eds he writes for the New York Times or how many long infomercials he does with Anderson Cooper over at Fake News CNN. He'll never escape simple truth and facts. He was a terrible FBI director. He abused his power. It's a good thing the president fired him. We now know was involved in rigging the investigation into Hillary Clinton. He engaged in a witch hunt against President Trump. He anointed a partisan, corrupt group of bureaucrats to his inner circle, almost all of which got fired, resigned in disgrace, or demoted. He willfully misled and committed a fraud, it seems, tonight on a FISA court to spy on the Trump campaign. We know he leaked sensitive government documents. It's against the law because he was mad that he got fired, and he leaked it to the New York Times for the purpose of getting a special counsel appointed. And now he is in serious legal jeopardy. James Comey, tick-tock. Now, with the help of Sarah Carter, John Solomon, so many others on this program, well, we have always worked to hold unelected, powerful government officials accountable. The left is more interested in scoring cheap political points, dividing the country, and pushing conspiracy theories with no evidence. In the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives, there you got people like the cowardly Schiff and Nadler and company trying to weaponize their committees. Why? To harass and order and prolong a series of endless witch hunts into the Trump administration. Now, Senator Graham has documented their unprecedented behavior. Take a look.
They just want an outcome. It doesn't matter how you get Trump. It doesn't matter if you trick the FISA court. It doesn't matter if you infiltrate the campaign. The goal is to stop Trump, and the rules don't matter. This is a very dangerous time in American history where the media and the Democratic Party wants an outcome against Trump, no matter what the rules are.
Doesn't matter. They wanted to destroy this president. They didn't want him elected. They had a favored candidate. They rigged her investigation. The evidence is overwhelming. It is incontrovertible. She had top secret classified information on a private server in a mom and pop bathroom closet. And yes, that's illegal. And yes, she tried to cover up the evidence by destroying it. That's why she, in fact, deleted subpoenaed emails, acid washed her hard drive with bleach bit, busted up her devices with hammers, and removed SIM cards. Why? That was the intent, to destroy evidence. The underlying crime, Espionage Act. The Attorney General tonight provided top Democrats access to all but 2 full and 7 partial lines of the Mueller report. They're too lazy to go look at it. This was grand jury information. Nadler's committee holding him in contempt, demanding that he be handcuffed by the sergeant at arms and brought before the committee because he's obeying the laws of the land. And then he redacted in accordance with federal law. That's right, you cannot reveal grand jury material. That is the law of the land. At least one person understands it. That would be the Attorney General. And because Barr refused to break the law and reveal grand jury information, Congressman Nadler is holding him in contempt. They're talking about putting him in handcuffs, calling the Attorney General's actions a, quote, direct assault on the constitutional order. Now, many other Democrats, friends in the media mob, they're declaring that we are in the middle of a constitutional crisis. We've been there for the longest time because of those people that abuse power. But, of course, they've been pushing conspiracy theories and lies. And, of course, you got the Intel chairman. Yes, the cowardly Schiff. Yes, is downright apoplectic, losing his mind because, well, the only person caught on tape colluding with the Russians is him, as he got fixed up in a hoax. Oh, do you have any evidence on Donald Trump? Yeah, we got evidence on Donald Trump. Well, what is the nature of the evidence? Naked pictures of Trump, naked pictures. Did Vladimir Putin see it? Vladimir, of course, but of course he sees it. Really? He's still eager to defend Attorney General Eric Holder. He was held in contempt. And of course, in that case, Obama, yeah, he did invoke executive privilege, something throughout the entire Mueller investigation Donald Trump never did. He told everybody in the White House to cooperate. They handed over 1.5 million documents, and he answered Mueller's questions. And still no collusion. For the 4th time we got that conclusion. Anyway, take a look at the cowardly Schiff.
They're saying they've turned over almost the entire Mueller report unredacted. The Attorney General, William Barr, has testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee. They're saying they're prevented by law from giving over this grand jury information. So what's the difference here?
There are categorical differences. First, the Obama administration made dozens of witnesses available to the Congress, provided numerous thousands of documents, as you just heard, to the Republicans in Congress. And yes, it made specific claims of privilege, but here the Trump administration has decided to say a blanket no to any kind of oversight whatsoever. No witnesses, no documents, no nothing.
No witnesses, no documents, no nothing. Yet again, the cowardly Schiff is lying. He is a liar. Mr. Schiff, come on this program 1 full hour, you and me. I've got a dossier on you. It's called Your Own Words. Then come on my radio show for 3 full hours. You can bring Nadler with you just for kicks. And the full Mueller report has been released. The AG has testified before Congress, and Adam Schiff is lying again. He's like losing it at this point. But this kind of far-fetched hysteria from the left is not going unchecked. As per usual, President Trump rightly now is fighting back after 4 exonerations, calling the Democrats' fake constitutional crisis narrative pathetically untrue. That is true. Now, the president is also calling out the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, accusing him of protecting the same gang who tried to overthrow the duly elected president of the United States. You know, we smelly Walmart people, irredeemable deplorables that cling to God and guns and Bibles and religion. That's us. So far, I don't see Director Wray, frankly, doing a darn thing to clean up the upper echelon of this FBI. That's his job. for the 99% of FBI special agents that put their lives at risk for us every single day. You owe it to them to get this department, this premier law enforcement agency, right with the American people. What has Wray done to hold Comey accountable? Nothing. What about McCabe? What about Baker? What about Strzok? What about Page? Mr. Wray, it's time for you to do your job. The former highest-ranking employees in his bureau committed real crimes, and yet no signs that Wray seems to care one bit to bring them to justice or working to prevent this abuse of power, hyper-partisan conduct from ever happening again. But in the coming months, justice will be served. We have promised you that. With or without, well, Director Wray's help. Here now with more on his big release, House Judiciary Committee Ranking Member Doug Collins. First, thank you. We wouldn't know so much that we know but for your courage to release these closed-door testimony documents. What did you take out of yesterday beyond about Loretta Lynch and so much more?
Well, thanks, Sean. I think one of the things that John just talked about is the American people are turning because they're seeing the truth. For the first time, they're actually seeing these testimonies that the investigators did, and you saw that with my colleagues, with Radcliffe and Jordan and Meadows and others who did this. We're seeing the truth of Gowdy. What they found out is that there was a conflict. What they were finding out was that there's this cover-up because they knew that if it was ever uncovered, that there would be trouble. Lynch, we knew was basically, we've already seen the incompetence that she showed as Attorney General. Now we're seeing them turning on Jim Comey, who his little run as Captain America is coming to an end. He is not what he has portrayed himself to be, and there's going to be answering for that based on what we see in these transcripts. There's contradictions at every turn.
Well, what do you make of John Solomon's report? We know the Bruce Orr warning. We know this woman 10 days before the first FISA application warned all these upper echelon. Again, not rank and file, not the 99%. Very important. And they were warned in so many different ways. They had probably 10 times the amount of evidence that was exculpatory, including transcripts we're going to hear about, as John said, in the next week or so, within the next week, and they never listened to it. Why?
Because it was I think they'd had a pattern all the time. Sean, we've talked about this before. This is a corrupt cabal of the top leadership who did not like candidate Trump. They definitely didn't like the thought of a President Trump. And now what they were doing is they were covering for themselves. They had what they believed, I think, was their insurance policy. They believed what they had was going to be the investigation that would show that there was a problem. And what really is disturbing here is they knew that they had a problem, that they was with these information they were getting from Steele in this dossier, and yet they went with it. As you said earlier, Comey verified this in the FISA application, but yet just a few months later said they were very unverified and salacious. We still have that today. That's the thing that's interesting here. They've never been verified. This is the problem that we're having, debunked. And they're turning on each other.
Well, and now look at this. Basically, the Attorney General under Obama, Lynch, basically accusing the FBI director at the time of perjury. Congressman, this is so important what you're doing. Thank you. We appreciate it. Congressman Collins from Georgia.